Support for today's show comes from airturn.com, manufacturers of mobile mounting hardware and wireless app controllers. AirTurn offers tools for seamlessly executing your performance the way you want. Check out airturn.com and use the code ROADIE for exclusive deals.
What's happening, roadies? This is Heather Bay.
This is Trace Davis.
What's happening, roadies? This is Maya Finlay, and you're listening to Roadie Free Radio.
What's up, roadies? My name is Larry Milburn, and this is Roadie Free Radio, your VIP pass to meet and greet the stars behind the scenes of the music and film business. All right, friends, what is happening? Welcome to episode 141. This is Roadie Free Radio, and this is your host, Larry Milburn, coming at you from a barn in Northwest Connecticut. My guest today is Miss Maya Finlay. She is a San Francisco-based audio engineer, producer, and songwriter. We are very excited to have her. But first, if you are listening to this the week of July 29th, well, guess what? I'm heading in for surgery. As you know, I've been yakking about my toe surgery, crying about my toe surgery. It's happening. July 30th, I go under the knife. Clip, clip, clip. They're going to clean it up. We're going to see what's going to happen. Am I anxious? A little bit. Ain't going to lie to you. I'm definitely a little bit anxious. More so about the outcome, the aftermath. What's it going to look like the next couple of months as I hobble around, try to work, try to shoot, try to do the things that I do, try to be a dad. I just don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know if I got to have a boot. I'm going to have a cast. I'm not sure what's happening, but I've got the positive vibes, man. The positive mental attitude brought to me by John Joseph of the Cro-Mags. As you know, I've been talking about his book. But no, seriously, you know, I got to do it. I'm going to get it done. So if anyone out there has been through this, has any tips, let me know. I think I'm going to be on Percocet maybe for a few days. Heard that's pretty fun. We'll see. We shall see. I don't know, guys. I don't know. Anyway, I have a much bigger announcement. Let's get to some positive stuff. Big announcement is this. I have been looking for a music festival to bring Roadie Free Radio to, right? A music festival that I can partner up with, hang out at, do interviews, shoot some content, get some fun behind the scenes stuff going with both the crew and the artists and the organizers, and just learn sort of inside out what makes a festival run. And lo and behold, in my backyard, 25 minutes up the road in Goshen, Connecticut, that's the northwest corner of the state, my friends, Litchfield County, we've got the Black Bear Americana Music Festival heading into its second year. It is Columbus Day weekend, October 11, 12, and 13, and we are there. We are on the ground floor. I am super excited. I can't wait. I cannot wait. I went up to the Goshen Fairgrounds. If any of you know the area, the Goshen Fairgrounds are kind of famous up in these parts. They have the big Goshen Fair every year. And now this fall, we're going to be putting on the Black Bear Americana Music Festival. I'm not putting it on. Let's be clear about that. This festival is in its second year. They have a wide range of different bands going on that you can check out. The official lineup has not been released yet. It's coming up, I believe, in the next few days. Certainly by the beginning of August, it will be up. Go to blackbearmusicfest.com. and check out the lineup. Check out what they did last year. There's a pretty sweet little video that they made. A lot of good guests and a lot of good people coming back this year. And I think they had a great, successful year last year. In fact, I know they did because that's why they're coming back. And I've partnered up with them. I get full access. Power Station Events, located in Cheshire, Connecticut, which is a full-on audio-visual production company, is doing all the backline, all the staging. There's a main stage, a side stage, a jam tent, a workshop tent, you name it. Jumbotron, they're showing movies, they're doing bands starting at 11 o'clock in the morning, running all the way through about 10:30 at night. So Columbus Day weekend, October 11, 12, and 13, Roadie Free Radio. We finally got our festival. I cannot wait. It's going to be a good time. I don't know what my foot's going to be like at that point. I made it clear to them, listen, I don't know if I'm running around, walking around, I'm on a scooter, I'm in a golf cart, who knows? But I'm going to be there, get to do some interviews from the green room, from the front of house. We're going to be all over the place. We're going to document what it takes to put on a festival and bring you guys some good stuff. So head over to blackbearmusicfest.com. You can learn more about the festival from there. Head over to powerstationevents.com to learn about Power Station Events and more about what they do. And of course, I will start putting out some information about the festival at roadiefreeradio.com. Again, I am very excited to be part of this, and I can't wait. I can't believe it's in my backyard. Super excited. So if you got nothing to do Columbus Day weekend, come on up camping. They got camping. You can pull your trailer up within about 50 yards of the music. It's incredible. Maybe not 50 yards, maybe like 200 yards, but you're right there. They got power. They got water. You can tent camp. You can camp in your RV, whatever you got. It's going to be awesome. This show is brought to you by a live audio engineer. Chris Wilson has an amazing product called Show Pro Beard Co. He and his wife have created this. This is their own unique formula of beard balm that you put on in the morning. Let's say you roll out of your bunk, you roll out of your bed, you roll off the floor, a pool table, wherever you've been the night before. You got a big bushy beard. It's a little unruly. You got to get to work. You want to clean yourself up. You slather a little bit of this in your hand, rub it on your beard. Okay, it provides control, shine, and a very pleasant aroma that you will be pleased with. You will be looking good. You'll be feeling good. And the best part is that they are non-waxy and they are all natural. I've used all the flavors at this point. I got one of the sample packs and I've tried them all out. I'm done. I've gone through my supply. And I've been totally happy with them. I use it even when I shave down and I just have some stubble. I just like to put it on. I like the way it smells. So they've got all kinds of flavors and smells and scents you can go with, like Home Sweet Home, Morning Wood, Through the Woods, Chain Motor Oil. And of course, they've got an unscented flavor as well. But you guys got to check these out over at showprobeardco.com. Use the code ROADIE. And right now you can get 20% off your entire order. That's Roadie when you head over to check that out. A couple more things I want to let you guys know about. I've got one birthday shout out for you today, and that is to Daniel Raymont, who played the character Buddha in my short film Roadie. As you know, I'm celebrating 15 years of the short film Roadie this summer. It came out, and Daniel played my English I don't know. He was another roadie. I wasn't even savvy enough when I made the film, to give myself or Buddha certain titles, like guitar tech or backline tech or anything like that. We were just the guys in the trenches. We did have a tour manager. Anyway, I digress. I'm gonna drop you guys the full story of how Roadie got made, who was involved. Because that's an interesting tale. And then, of course, how it ultimately led through to the Black Crowes and the Black Crowes crew, and then to me sitting here right now doing the podcast. Because that's a crazy tale of 15 years of getting here. And I've never put it in one spot, so I'm going to do that. Perhaps next week we will see. So happy birthday, Daniel, my man. I appreciate it. I'm going to be posting up some short clips from the film so you can check out Daniel's fun take on being an English roadie. The other thing I want to let you guys know about, iTunes reviews, Apple Podcasts. Please head over. It's a great way to help support the show and show your love for what we're doing here at Roadie Free Radio. A review, a rating, all of those things mean a lot. They actually help boost our profile in the Apple Podcast store. And anything you can do to help out, we would greatly appreciate it. Head on over and drop us a little love, star rating, something like that. Guys, we are also sponsored today by StagehandsClothing.com. This is a husband and wife team. They are both in the business. They have created the one-stop shop for backstage professionals who are always working hard behind the scenes and count on high-quality, durable workwear. And it's true. When you're out there, you're working on your hands and knees, you're patching boards, you're patching cables, you're moving things around. You want your pants to hold up. You want things to hold up under the day in and day out use that so many of us go through out on the road. or on stage, backstage, wherever it may be. And these guys, they carry a wide variety of different things, from men's and women's apparel, a lot of cool tactical gear to keep you ready for the next task. Use the code ROADIE over there as well. You get 20% off your entire order. The next couple of weeks, the next two guests that I'll be rolling out, including today's Maya, and then I've got Rena Kozak coming up in a couple of weeks. Two phenomenal women. Two women that are both soundgirls.org members, Women's Audio Mission members. They pride themselves on obviously working hard, making their way through this industry. Also, more importantly, giving back through Women's Audio Mission, through soundgirls.org, and mentoring other young women who are coming up in the field as well. So today's guest is Maya Finley. She's an audio engineer, producer, songwriter, and musician based in San Francisco, California. She is full-time audio engineering over at SFJAZZ Center and tours regularly doing monitors for Rosanne Cash. She is in her own band as well called Gringa. We get into that. We talk about, the trials and tribulations of being in a band that's ever changing while you're trying to do your outside work, your audio work, whatever it is you're on the road. And, the lineup changes, but you're still trying to get your record done. We definitely dive deep into that. She works a lot with Women's Audio Mission at their studio and as well in her own studio called the Mi-Fi Hive. And we talked about something that I found pretty interesting. I think you will too, for those of you that are out on the road quite a bit. And it also came up with Rena Kozak. The idea that being on the road, especially when you are trying to get over, let's say, a loss of some kind or some traumatic event in your life, and then you go out on the road, provides a kind of therapy and can help you get through whatever that trauma was or that loss was that you just experienced before getting out there. And it was just interesting to me that both of these women had a similar tale where something happened to them. And in both of these cases, they lost someone close to them, and then they got a gig on the road, and they got to go out and sort of experience all the ups and downs of that while out on the road. The same thing also happened to both of them, where while they were out there and they returned home, they sort of went through this minimalist decluttering of their lives upon returning, realizing that they could live with a lot less in their life as opposed to when they left and they had, a bunch of stuff in their apartments or whatever it was, and clothing and whatever. So both of them went through sort of a shedding when they got back. And I just found it was interesting. I did the interviews somewhat back to back, and I drew a parallel, is what I'm trying to say. I drew a parallel, and I hope you'll see the parallel and you'll get it. So anyway, it was great having Maya on the show. Great to get her perspective on the whole thing. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoy it. Again, the next time you hear from me, I will be laid up on the couch with my foot in the air, recovering from toe surgery, foot surgery. It's going to be a special ride. Tune in with me if you want to do so. Hit me up with an email, info@roadiefreeradio.com. All right, guys, here we go. Miss Maya Finlay.
Hit it. Call yourself a roadie. Call yourself a roadie. Call yourself a roadie.
So Maya, you just experienced a little earthquake. Is that what just happened?
I think so, yeah. Just a small one. A little building rattle. But yeah.
That's good for the soul.
Yeah. Yeah, they say it's good, right? To alleviate some of the pressure. So we don't want it to build up too much.
Right, exactly. That's exactly what they say. At least you're not having or had what just happened down in Southern California.
Right.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
How are you? Thank you for being on the show. I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Reading through your bio on your site and, a lot of your accomplishments and education and stuff like that, you do a lot of different stuff. It's kind of hard to pin you down to one thing, which is cool. And I'm curious how you juggle doing, being an audio engineer, a record producer, a musician yourself, a songwriter, and all those things. How do you create the space to be able to do those things? Obviously, I know one or a couple of those tracks are your bread and butter, but let's start there. Yeah,
definitely. Some things get priority over others. And lately I've done mostly live sound, like in this year. I'm not playing in a band or anything at the moment, and not doing as much recording. I'm really doing mostly live sound at the moment. So I'm working full time at SFJAZZ, and then always trying to carve out more space for recording and writing. And but yeah, it can be a difficult balance.
Are you always trying to carve out that space because that's your first love, or because for you that's sort of more creative and it's an effort to keep that going?
Yeah, to keep that creative motivation going, and or just, I feel like if I don't play or practice or write after several days, I find that I get kind of cranky. So it's more like self-care. It's just more like a necessity. It's like I feel like I need to express myself in those ways. And so just like meditation or exercise or anything like that, I think creating and writing and recording and stuff is kind of good for the soul.
Yeah. So on that, tell me about Gringa and Gringa Music and the latest record, the EP that you guys put out.
Letters from Abroad. So that was, we started that group in like 2013, and it was just a three-piece at first, percussion, sax, and then I play guitar, and we all kind of took turns singing. Over time, we added a drummer and a bassist, and it was really, in Brazil, the word gringa is like any woman that's not from Brazil. And I just found that I was like connecting with a lot of these women musicians, and we all just loved Brazilian music, even though none of us came from Brazil. So some people have, but for the most part, so it was just kind of like a funny, like tongue-in-cheek, like, okay, let's call ourselves gringa. Like, we're not pretending to be someone we're not. We're kind of making fun of this idea of like American exceptionalism, or not taking ourselves too seriously. And we were kind of blending, like doing original music and some covers of Brazilian music, or doing like a Beatles song with like a Brazilian spin on it and stuff like that. And so kind of really blending these like sort of more American influences with Latin influences.
But you guys aren't touring. There's nothing like that happening right now.
No, kind of, the woman I founded it with, Kate Pittard, she passed away. She had a very difficult battle with cancer the last couple years, and she passed away in November, and it kind of fell apart right before that. It was like really hard to get everyone together for rehearsals. Everybody had very different schedules, and I'm not a fan of like forcing anything. And once I started to feel like I was forcing it, I was like, okay, this isn't working out. And then right after she passed away, I got asked to do these tours, and then that kept me really busy. And so, it didn't seem like it was in the cards. So right now I'm kind of, I'd like to do like kind of just a solo recording project. I'm like, I don't want to plan any rehearsals. I don't want to have to like work with other people's schedules. And I'd love to just kind of do more of a trip hop solo recording project. So it's very slow going, but that's kind of like what I want to work on right now. Yeah.
It must have been a good thing to have some tours to jump into after losing a bandmate and a friend, I imagine.
Yeah, it was definitely helped have sort of a distraction from that. And it was, I went through a lot of emotions at that time, just I'm sure. every positive and negative emotion that you could feel within within 1 week. Actually, we had her memorial, and the next day I flew down to LA and had a show with Roseanne's band for the first time that night. Wow. And yeah, it was just in that week, it was like I just felt everything.
I'm sure, man. That's crazy. And also tough to sort of be able to process things while you've got all this great work to pour into. Probably tough to process everything while you're trying to pour yourself into your work and be out on the road and all that. But I guess maybe the distance or being on the road was probably helpful to some degree.
Yeah, in some ways I wanted to just like sit down and like take it all in after her memorial, but I had to just pack. And so, it's just, hopefully it's like an ongoing process, and we'll always honor her. And I'm we're working on trying to set up a scholarship fund into something. We used to go to something called Brazil Camp every year. It was like a music and dance camp, like 2 hours north of San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
And she was a big fan, and so we're planning to set up a little fund where we can send someone each year, kind of in her name, in her honor.
Yeah. You DJ, you have DJ'd, you're, as I said, a songwriter, musician. You played a bunch of the instruments yourself on that record. Do live sound recording, all that kind of stuff. Where did the spark for all of this come from for you way back?
I've just always loved music. I always played music. I played piano when I was younger. And I always collected. I was kind of shy, or I did musical theater as a kid. And then something happened where I just became very kind of a little more turned inward, and kind of became shy. But I still just loved like going to concerts and collecting CDs and tapes. And I just like was really lost on like what I wanted to do with my life for a while. And then I just kind of had like a revelation in college that, I'm spending all my time and money on music and collecting music and going to live music that, and I always had this idea like you'd have to be a performer or something. And I realized, there's this whole world behind the scenes of production that I could be a part of. And so I took a class in college, but then I went to Brazil and I studied kind of some music there. And then it wasn't until I came back here to San Francisco that I took some classes at City College, and that's when I really like started my career. So it was definitely a conscious decision. It wasn't like, a lot of people kind of fell into it because they're doing sound for their band or whatever. Right. And for me, it was definitely like, just, I want to learn production. I think I could do this. I was very inspired by hip hop. Actually, I was listening to a lot of hip hop in college and in high school. I was like, I can make beats. Like, I want to make beats. And then the funny thing is, I was like, I should be an engineer first. And I've kind of gone on this whole engineering thing, and I never really kind of came back to just like making my own beats. And so like, that's kind of what I'm working on now, or what I'm planning to work on next,
That's so cool. Because I was going to ask you, like with all the shows you were going to when you were younger, prior to that revelation, were you conscious of the fact that there weren't just these folks on stage making this noise, but there was this subgroup, of a front of house engineer, monitor person, techs and whatnot, that were making this happen? There's a lot of people that I've talked to, they get into this and, they find themselves looking off to the wings, or they go gravitate toward front of house and they're like, what are you doing? And what is all this stuff? But it doesn't sound like you necessarily had that until later.
Yeah, I probably didn't really notice. Maybe like in college, when I started going to the small, because in high school, I was under 21. So I'd go to like the bigger concerts at like Shoreline Theater and, arena shows and stuff, because that's all I could kind of do. But once I got into college and I kind of saw stagehands running around, and I was like closer to the mixing console, then I kind of realized like, that's a job, and that would be a really cool job. And then once I started doing it, it just, really resonated with me. It just felt like, I'm in my element. Like, this is what I should be doing, More
so in the live arena than in the recording studio? Like when you were first getting into it?
I think so, yeah. I actually started doing more studio stuff, but I ended up doing a lot of voiceover work just for the studios to pay the bills. And but so it wasn't until I kind of started doing some live stuff that I was just like, okay, yes, like I'm in my element,
And why?
Because I had spent so much time going. I was very social. I'd go out a lot at night. I was kind of a party girl in high school and college and stuff. So then to feel like I could be out and at a show that I would normally be at anyways, but I don't have to pay. Right. I'm working directly with the artists. I'm getting drinks for free from the bar. It was just sort of like, this is great. I was always a night owl. I always wanted to stay up late. So having a job where I could, stay up later and have those hours just kind of like made sense with my lifestyle.
Yep. And technically, did you feel at home technically?
Yeah. I mean, I've always liked science and math, and I like being challenged. So, it was like, I love patching things, and signal flow, and just so like all of that was, it was fun to kind of like have a challenge that was technical and musical and social, because that's a challenge as well, like working with different people and stuff. So I liked that I kind of had these various aspects of it, and also not sitting in front of a computer all day. I think that is part of what made it so fun. Is you're up, you're walking around, you're not just like staring at a screen.
Yeah. So when you came back to San Francisco, who did you start learning from? Who were some of those sort of early mentors? How did you even know where to go to start some of this stuff, particularly the live sound stuff?
Yeah. So first I went to City College of San Francisco, which is awesome because it's very cheap, but really great professors. So I had Terry Winston was one of my professors. She's the executive director of Women's Audio Mission, and Dana J. Lebrec, who is also involved in Wham and Sound Girls, and then I got involved with Women's Audio Mission, and as part of the kind of certificate I was doing at City College, I had to do an internship, and so I interned at a studio, and then that led to my first studio job, and then everything from there really mostly came out of referrals. In terms of live sound, I really got the opportunity through a friend. There was like a small place called Yoshi's. I don't know if I've heard of Yoshi's, but it's like a jazz club, and there's still one in Oakland, but they had one in San Francisco, and they had this kind of like restaurant area that a promoter was starting to do these small events 3 times a week. But because it was in the restaurant, all the gear was like in the closet, and you'd have to pull it out and start from scratch each time. And so a friend of mine did one night, and she just realized like live sound was not for her. It was like the public humiliation aspect of it. One of the artists wasn't happy and was sort of like, "Can you hear this? Because I can't hear this." And my friend was just like, "No, I don't want to do this." So she called me up, and she's like, would you be interested in working at this place? And it happened to be like down the street from my house. So I was like, yeah, I'd love to. And at the time I was really like, I'd done sort of one-offs with live sound, but I didn't have a regular gig. And I realized that to get better at mixing, I really needed to do it regularly, at least once a week. So at the end of that night, the promoters were like, "Hey, do you want to do this every week?" And I was like, "Yes, that's exactly what I'm looking for." And then that turned into like twice a week or 3 times a week. The promoters their names, it's Bay Vibes was the name of it. But so that really helped me like cut my teeth, especially because I had to build the PA system from scratch. And then we started doing multi-track recordings, and so that was a really great experience. And then that lasted about 2 years. And then after that, I just kind of, asked around, and I just kind of got into some of the smaller clubs, and then just moved up to bigger clubs. And then eventually I just got tired of working at 5 different clubs and being like, where am I today? And, and I managed to get myself a spot at the SFJAZZ Center. It's like, there's only 3 full-time audio engineers there, but it's been nice for the last 3 years to just have like one place that I have a drawer where I can keep my things, and a fridge and a microwave, and like a proper break room,
Right.
Yeah. So.
Well,
yeah.
And also I imagine making the jump up to SF means you're making a jump up in caliber to artists.
Yeah.
And the diversity of artists coming through there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The drawback is that I see some local musicians, but once I really got in there full time, I felt a little disconnected from the local scene, because at these other smaller venues, I was working with local artists all the time, regularly. And now I'm working with touring artists, which is amazing. And I know engineers and artists from all over the world, but there was kind of a trade-off with that. Yeah.
Yeah. In working with all these different artists or touring artists that are coming in, sometimes I know they do little mini residencies, 3-4 days, at SFJAZZ. As the house engineer, talk to me a little bit about those initial first few hours. when an artist comes in, and just how you sort of mine through that relationship?
So we have a decent amount of time to prep as much as possible before they get there. It can vary a lot because last weekend they brought in their own front of house console. So then, and they had their own mics and everything. So there wasn't that much we could do before they got there. But assuming they don't, then, we just kind of get things, to a basic starting point. And then when they come in, then we had to figure out, do you want to go into our console, which is already matrixed out to the various areas? He actually wanted to just go straight into our system. So then there's some, you got to run some Cat6 cables and, figure out some ways to get, because then we have lobby feeds and record feeds and all these other, feeds. So that was kind of my main job, was just kind of getting that all set up. And then the rest of the weekend I was just babysitting. But, so we usually have a couple, an hour or two to kind of get things set up, depending on how big their setup is. And then they come in and we introduce ourselves and, just
let it run.
Yeah.
So when you guys are in a situation like that, where they bring in their own crew, they bring in their own front of house or something like that, like you said, you're just kind of babysitting. Mm-hmm. That's going to be different than, but I guess a lot of these acts that come through there have that. So maybe you're not necessarily interfacing with the artist or management to talk about their needs. And, I guess I'm trying to get a sense of what it's like when you first meet these folks for the first time and you have to quickly establish a rapport. Because you've got a show coming up in a couple of hours, basically.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I guess I interact with the artist a lot more as a monitor engineer. So yeah, I just try to, walk as soon as they, come on stage, or if they're not busy, just introduce myself to them, ask them what they need. People are usually pretty, they're on tours, so they get it. They're just okay, I need 2 guitar stands and a music stand or whatever. And yeah, it's totally different depending on the band. Some people are super friendly and open and want to chat. Some people don't, but most people are really nice. And
is that a big part of the job and something that you would impart to, people that are coming up, is to be able to read people quickly?
Yeah, I think it's good to have a sense of knowing whether someone is in a position to stop and talk, whether you're interrupting them, if they're kind of cold, don't push it. Yeah, I think a lot of the job is people skills. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and you ended up getting a pretty awesome gig with Rosanne Cash from doing monitors there.
So every year there's 4 resident artist directors. Am I saying that right? Yeah. RAD, we call them RADs, right? And they have a 2-year residency where they get a weekend each year, and they have 4 nights, and they're kind of encouraged to do something different each night. So they usually bring different stars or kind of do a different type of show. So the first time she came as a RAD, she came with Lucinda Williams and Emmylou Harris, and they did sort of a Songwriters in the Round show, which was amazing. And so that was the first time I worked with her. And then the next year she brought Cooder, and they did a tribute to Johnny Cash, which was really unique because she doesn't play her dad's music. She's really tried to separate build her own career. Yeah. And so that was definitely a very special show. And so that's where I met her and kind of got along with her and her front of house guy, David Mann, and her manager. And so then they kind of, when they were looking for a monitor person, I guess they had sort of suggested me to her, and it's been working out. So
that's pretty awesome, man. Is it tough to then leave your home base behind for a little bit?
No, not at all. I think maybe it was, timing, like we talked about, or, I'd been going through all this other tragedy in my life, but
that's when that happened, back around then.
Yeah, when I started to, because the first tour was in January, and so it was great. Like I was a little nervous about it. The things that I thought I wouldn't like about it, which is like living out of a suitcase or kind of being 100% focused on someone else's project and not having time for my own, didn't actually bother me. I actually really learned to like living out of my suitcase because it was just very simple. It's like, okay, I have 4 outfits. Which one am I going to wear today? Or like, okay, all my toiletries are here. And I got home and I realized how like cluttered my house was and just how all over the place everything was. And I was like, I kind of just really like the simplicity, so I ended up just getting rid of a bunch of clothes, and it helped me like get on this kick of like organizing and like throwing stuff away. And then, I actually really love like being 100% focused on the project at hand. Like there's something about it, just like waking up and okay, like I've got my lobby call time and we go and we do the sound check and just being like fully in it, and you're with the team, and it's just fun. Like at the end of the night after the show, sometimes I just like can't even sleep because I feel just excited and and I love it. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, it was great.
I think you're the first. Was that your first like tour experience?
Yeah, I had done a tour in Bali before, but we were basically stationed in the same place, and then just took day trips. So yeah, that was my real like touring from place to place.
That's so cool. I think you're the first person I've had on the show who's on the road experience like that, sort of living nomadically, fully influenced your home life when you got back and prompted you to pare down a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Unclutter, as you said. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're right. You realize when you exist like that you don't need a lot of the other stuff that you've got going on, right?
Right. Yeah.
I was also curious because I know that your EP came out somewhat around the same time or a little bit before.
It actually came out in 2017. So about 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, like, as you work with, I have a feeling you're going to say no, it didn't matter to me at all. But I'm curious, when techs work with artists, with great artists, you've had an amazing influx of artists through the SFJAZZ Center. I mean, just looking at the bio and your credits through there and the folks you've worked with, right? Amazing artists in their own right. Is it at all scary to put out your own music? Or do you get like a little precious or shy about it where you're like, I did this thing, or you know what I mean? And all those insecure feelings of like, it's never going to stand up to this, and why am I doing it, or no?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because I'm kind of a perfectionist anyways, and then that particular EP was started with a different band actually, and then we kind of split up during the recording process, and then I sort of finished it with this other band. So there are a lot of like fragments, and I'm still proud of it, but I know I could do better. So, and especially like when you've worked on something for years, it's like by the time you're done, you're like, I don't even like these songs anymore. Like I'm tired of hearing that. I just want to move on, So when we released it, I was really motivated to then kind of apply everything I had learned from that onto the next recordings. And I just haven't been able to put the time into it that I needed to like finish the outlet. When I was working on finishing the album, that was all I did. I went to work and then I come home at night and work on it. I wake up in the morning, work on it, then I go to work, and it was just like, it was intense. And so, so I don't really compare it to the artists I work with, especially because it's like not necessarily the same kind of music. And I mean, that'll just destroy me if I try to like compare it to the people I'm working with. And I just hope that I can keep like evolving, and that I try to learn whatever I can, even if there's an artist that I don't particularly like their music or their style or whatever. I always try to find something about it that I can learn, or that, that I could apply to my own music and recording.
Were there obstacles when you started out with Roseanne on the road in the beginning? And I mean, obstacles in terms of like, oh shit, I'm a little fish out of water. I've never done this before on tour. You've obviously done it in-house. You know what I mean? Were there some tough spots where you're like, some struggles, and then how did you get through that?
I think like so one of the things I was most worried about was just working on different consoles because, I had gotten very, comfortable on the same consoles at my venues, even the other venues that I had been working at before. So I just watched tutorials beforehand. I looked up the manuals and like tried to anticipate, like, okay, try to go through the gig in my head and like, okay, what, maybe I'll need the phase button. Okay, let me look up and make sure I know where that is. And, just kind of like anticipate certain things. It helps that it's just monitors. So then there were certain things I was like, okay, I know I won't need like the delay or, certain things that I might need at front of house or something that's just like, I don't even have to go there.
Yeah.
Just like did a lot of research on that or just try to like walk in as prepared as possible. And now I feel much more comfortable doing that.
Yeah. You've worked a lot with Women's Audio Mission. I think you helped set up one of their studios. Is that correct?
Yeah, their previous studio. It was in like a warehouse space. We just built a studio within a space. Now they're at like a bigger, better space. But
nice.
Yeah.
And tell me about some of the work you've done with them. I featured a lot of sound girls on the show, but I haven't had that many members of Women's Audio Mission yet. I will have more. So tell me about your work with them and tell me, what they specifically try to do and sort of their mission.
So their mission is to get more women and girls into production, audio production, or just interested or using audio and music as a way to get girls interested in science and math and technology. And so they have a lot of workshops for middle school girls. I think they do a camp. They're part of something called Expanding Your Horizons, which is like a STEM conference for middle school girls. And so a couple of times I went to that and, we'd have something called Girls on the Mic. And we would, just teach them about like audio engineering. Because, when I was their age, I had no idea that career existed. And so it's just exposing them to it. And then they'd kind of break out and someone would talk to them about sound for picture and someone would talk to them about, recording sound. And then I would usually do like the live sound demo. And then they also it's like a fully functioning studio. So you can book time in there. And I've done several recordings in there.
Mm-hmm. It must be kind of cool, I would imagine, to see some of those light bulb moments happen for a middle school girl who maybe doesn't fit in whatever stupid group, sports or social, right? Or whatever it is, to all of a sudden, kind of like you were later, you were in college, but also when it snapped for you, like, oh my God, I can do this. I'm already there. I'm already listening. Yeah. I'm already playing. Like, I can do this. But when you're in middle school and you're trying to find your footing, and you're already in those awkward years, I would imagine for you guys, it's got to be cool to be older and sort of mentoring, these girls through and see these light bulb moments for them.
Yeah, it's great. And some of them even like have, they've already been playing around with GarageBand or Reason or something at home, and I'm like, oh, you're so lucky, like that's so awesome. Right. Keep going,
Yeah.
Or I remember I did there's also Girls Rock Camp. I don't know if you've heard of them. Yeah, so I did that one year, and I just remember like teaching a girl how to wrap a cable, and that was very satisfying. And getting these young stagehands up to speed.
Right. So. The little things, learning those little things, because that's obviously where it starts. That's the foundation, like you said. Yeah. That's awesome. That is super cool. And let's go. Oh, wait, I know what I wanted to talk to you about. And I did read about it in your Sound Girls profile, the critical listener bit that you do with Elbo. Do you still do that?
I do. It's very rare. It's like, I did 2 shifts last month or something. It's not like a consistent job. It's just kind of an on-call thing.
Okay. So critical listener is basically you go sit and they've given you a criteria of things to listen for that they're trying to A/B, I guess.
I know. We get very little like instruction about like what we're listening to. Basically, like the last ones I did were you have you have like a reference track, and then you have these other, maybe 5 other samples, and they've all been there, have different algorithms or like different compression, and and you have to find which of those 5 is the reference. And so sometimes it's very easy because some of them have a low pass at like 3K and 7.5K, and so those are really easy. You can just knock those out. So then it gets down to like 3, and I mean, it's very, very like detailed listening. Basically, you can only really, unless it's obvious, you have to loop a tiny sample and kind of go back and forth and listen. So yeah, we're really just, and they just want to know like how quickly and how accurately can we find the reference, and then you grade the other ones that aren't the reference. So if it takes, if it's pretty quick to find that it's not the reference, then maybe I rank it poorly, like, okay, it doesn't sound as good, and then they just want to, if they can trick us and make us think that another one's a reference, and that's the goal, then they're making, an algorithm that sounds almost as good as the original. Are you wearing headphones? Are you in monitors? Are you in a controlled room? What does this thing look like? Yeah, it's in a controlled room, and it's both. Sometimes we have headphones, sometimes we have monitors, different kind of surround sound configurations. Sometimes we're testing like Dolby Atmos, or like comparing Atmos to stereo, regular stereo recording. Wow. Sometimes there's a video component, and then sometimes it's just a preference thing. There's no like grading it or finding a hidden reference. It's just which do you prefer? So you hear these 2 samples with or without picture, with headphones or on monitors, and it's like, okay, which one do you prefer and why? Or which one sounds more spacious? Which one has more depth or more height? Yeah. I'm just kind of answer questions about that. It sounds kind of fun. It sounds a little crazy, but it sounds fun. Yeah, it is fun. It will drive you crazy, or like, listening to when we loop it. I'm just like, if someone's, if someone heard this, they would think I was insane, because I'm just hearing this like 1 second loop over and over again, trying to find this hidden reference. But so it's not something you can do. We usually do like 2 or 3 hours at a time, because anything more than that, and you'll go crazy. Yeah, I bet. It's got to be tough too. They do this during the day. Yeah, so it's got to be tough rolling off a gig the night before, waking up and doing this too. I imagine your ears are probably a little shot. Yeah, it's just like part of the job, Right. I just feel like I use my ears all the time. So yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm not feeling it, but it's like or you have a cold or something, and it's like, oh, I don't know if my ears are okay today, but you just do it. Figure it out. Yeah. Yeah. I know also you talked in the Sound Girls piece, which I am referencing a lot because I read it right before we started talking. But it was a good piece, and you should all who are listening right now go and find it and check it out. And I will put a link to it. But I know you talk in there about the workplace and a bit of the ceiling, and some microaggression and, some sexism and stuff like that you found along the way. What do you do to move within that and without that? Is it getting better? Is it getting? I hope so. I don't know. It depends on the person. It's interesting because I don't experience it that much on the road. Someone asked me this the other day, like, oh, how is it on the road? I don't know if that's because we play university theaters and the people are kind of younger and sort of student workers and stuff. But, I think it is getting better. I think with like Wham and Sound Girls, and there's more visibility and people are talking about it more. I think though, so I just try to do the best job I can do and, let my work speak for itself. I used to complain a lot about it at the beginning, or be like, oh, this guy came up and tried to tell me how to do my job last night. And it's like, I don't really write about it on social media anymore. Like, complain. It just feels like complaining, and it's not that helpful. It never really does anything. But that doesn't mean it's not happening, but there's also a lot of, guys I've worked with that have been really supportive. And so I also want to acknowledge that. But, I definitely feel like I have to, and, a lot of women or non-binary folks and have to prove ourselves more in some ways. Like, even recently there's been a couple of times where it's like, someone asked me to do something in Pro Tools, and then I fixed this recording, and then when it was in a meeting, and in the meeting notes it was like, oh, me and Maya fixed it in Pro Tools, and it's like when the guy sat next to me and was learning from me, so, and then that happened with an album I recorded some stuff on where same thing, kind of my engineering credit got shared with someone else who wasn't an engineer at all, but he was a producer, but the producer didn't want to share his producing credit, so it made me realize wow, sometimes guys get credit for doing things that they don't even do. And I have to prove myself all the time, even when, I'm the front of house engineer and a band comes in and they're like, well, who's the sound guy? And I'm like, well, I'm the sound guy. And like, well, are you sure? Because it was a different guy last time, or, or there's just been so many instances where or I'm putting up a mic and then I'm like, oh, do you want a mic or a DI? And they're like, well, just leave it there and he'll figure it out, or he'll deal with it. I'm like, who's he? And they're like, the sound guy. I'm like, no, I'm the sound guy, So, and that happens all the time, and it's exhausting, and I think I think it's important to talk about it and to acknowledge that still exists. And, if, at least if guys can realize, the ways that they might be taking credit for someone else's work or not acknowledging someone, or someone comes up to front of house and they start talking about audio with the video guy. I'm always kind of the last person that they think is going to be the sound engineer. And, but in some ways it's kind of fun, to just, I like kind of, challenging those stereotypes and sometimes making people uncomfortable. If that makes them uncomfortable, then great,
Right, right. And sometimes sometimes being made to be uncomfortable may just snap you out of your normal thing, your normal conditioning.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe you'll be the push that they need to not think that way anymore.
Hopefully. I mean,
it'd be nice to think that.
Yeah. Once I was front of house one time, and a guest engineer came in at a different club, and he said, we were talking about the input list, and then he got a little flustered. He's like, I'm sorry, I get nervous around women, and it's just, and it's this thing you're constantly reminded of, your gender at work, or even just with people being like, oh, I've never worked with a female engineer. Or sometimes you're like, can we just not talk about it anymore? Can I just be an engineer? And,
right.
Right. So, but I also have embraced my feminine side a little bit more. I started wearing kind of earrings and at work, and just rings, or just I kind of felt my creativity was stifled a little bit by having to wear all black. And I think for a while I felt like I had to act like a man to kind of fit in, and now I'm like, no, you know what? I think partly what makes me successful is that I have a different energy, or that I have a very customer service approach to doing sound, and maybe that combination of masculine and feminine traits is what makes me successful, you know? And so kind of embracing both sides of myself in that way.
What does a customer service approach to sound look like?
I would say, putting the artist's needs and the club, the venue's needs and the audience needs above my own. I think there's a lot of engineers who they're really in it for themselves. They want to twist the knobs, and for monitors, you mix until that artist is happy. Once the artist is happy, you stop. Some people keep tweaking, or they really make things more complicated than they need to because they want to geek out with the technology and stuff, and it's not about that. And so for me, it's if I have to bite my tongue to make the artist, if an artist is being difficult, I'm not going to talk back. I'm just going to, I'm going to do them whatever I can to make them happy, and I think that's my role there. Like, it's not about me and my ego.
Yeah. But I imagine that to a point. Right. If they're insulting, right, or if it's like bad, I imagine you would stand up for yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Have you had cases like that?
I mean, I've definitely had like awkward or, situations where I just don't jive with the crew or something. Mm-hmm. I can't think of anything that was like, where I really had to stick up for myself.
I mean, more like with an artist.
I don't know. I guess I just kind of like try to let it roll off my back, Yeah. I don't feel like I'm trying to think if there's been any sort of like abusive artists. Not really, not nothing that really sticks out.
All right. Well, that's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So for the young guy or gal or non-binary out there who's thinking about this as a possibility, what's your advice? Or even who's just starting out, who's a bit older, who's just starting out? What's some advice, the elevator pitch? You get to corner somebody and say, here, this is what I would do that I didn't do, that I wish I had done.
For live sound or just any kind of sound?
A life in the as a music professional. Mm-hmm.
I think, definitely trying to be clear about what you want and don't want, so it's easy to fall down a path, because you need the work or, think that you should go a certain direction or something. And I think it is important to just follow what your passion is. And I think one thing that in terms of my like recording and producing, that held me up for a while was feeling like I needed the perfect gear at home and all the knowledge and everything. And it's like, no, like, don't wait, just start making it happen with whatever gear you have and with whatever knowledge you have. Mm-hmm. And I think with live sound, some advice I've told people is also maybe check out the union. I didn't really join the union because I had built up enough work at the venues, but I do think the union is a good resource and can get you like going and into work pretty quickly.
You like living in San Francisco? You think it's a good spot for you? Good mix? Good fit?
I've been considering moving lately. It's a beautiful city, but I'm a fan of warmer weather, I have to say, and I'm not really into the tech culture here, so I've been considering moving down to LA. Mm-hmm. Just to be more in the music and film industries and have more space and hotter weather. But San Francisco's, it's beautiful. It's very expensive. It's very hard to live. I live in an apartment now, and I would love to move, and I have rent control. So I'm basically, we call it the golden handcuffs.
Right.
I'm lucky, but I'm also sort of like stuck here. So yeah. In terms of like mobility in San Francisco, it's a little hard, and everyone is just working constantly because food and everything here is just so expensive. Yeah. So the one touring engineer told me, he's like, we think you guys are crazy here. He's like, I have a 5-bedroom house and all this land, and I pay, a fraction of what you guys pay for like a 1-bedroom apartment. So
yeah.
It is a little crazy, but that's where the work is for me now. And maybe if I toured full time, then I might have more opportunities to go somewhere else. But but right now I can't complain. It is a beautiful city.
Well, one of my guests out of LA, Grace Royce, she lives on a boat.
Oh wow!
You could do that route.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to buy the boat.
Right.
Anyway, Maya, thank you so much. Good luck with everything. And again, I appreciate having you.
Thanks. Take care.
Talk to you soon. All right, guys, there you go. Episode 141 in the can with Maya Finley. Stay tuned next week. Episode 142 is coming up, coming at you from the opioid couch, where I will be recouping from toe surgery. You can follow us during the week at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify, all as Roadie Free Radio. Check out the website, roadiefreeradio.com. Send me a note, because you know I want to hear from you. That's info@roadiefreeradio.com. And my friends, in the meantime, y'all be safe out there. No roadies, no rock and roll.